Alright, so the Star Wars Bounty Hunter remaster and re-release is controversial, pretty much just like every other Star Wars project in recent times. Everything that's Star Wars seems to have some level of controversy surrounding it.
They've given up.
However, a lot of people are missing that this is actually kind of a big deal, especially if you play the original Star Wars Bounty Hunter way back in the day, or even for new players if you've never played it. And I'm going to explain why. There's a bunch of details regarding this remaster that make it really unique from all of the other remasters Aspyr Media have done. And yes, Aspyr Media are of course the same company that fumbled, and that's putting it lightly, the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection. The game we all loved as children and was released as a broken, nightmarish mess. Why is he glitching like that? But to be fair, they're not, as far as I've seen, calling it a remaster. It's more of a re-release and an enhanced version of the original game which released in 2002. Now, I have never finished Star Wars Bounty Hunter. I've actually got a series going on the channel that I started maybe 3 or 4 years ago where I was playing this game in its original version, which is where this gets a little bit controversial. Star Wars Bounty Hunter has already come out on PS4. The game was re-released several years ago as a port, similar to, I guess, Star Wars Racer or Republic Commando, with no real enhancements made. It was more just a direct port with, I guess, a PS4 upscale. You can play in 1080p, and that was kind of the end of it. This new version, however, is taking that a bit further. That said, should you have to pay full price for a game that you probably already bought a few years ago? Well, technically, it is kind of a new version of the game, and let's be real, GTA 5 released how many times? I've lost track. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. By the way, if you didn't know this, I actually have 2 channels. Bombastic Clips is my other channel where I post mostly about the Star Wars shows and movies and TV and trivia and everything like that. I'm covering the Acolyte currently quite heavily on that channel, but there's a lot more Star Wars going on beside that. If you want to get news, daily news on Star Wars, then go subscribe to my other channel. You might have noticed I haven't posted anything of the Acolyte on my main channel or really any other Star Wars series in recent times. It's more a Clips channel vibe. Okay, so why is this new Star Wars Bounty Hunter re-release different to others? Well, let's start with some of the basics. Previously, Star Wars Bounty Hunter was only out on PS4, but now it's being released on PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, and also PC. And that's with all of the enhancements this new version of the game is coming with. Star Wars Bounty Hunter is notoriously an incredibly difficult game, and part of that is mostly just because of the control system. For example, square is the shoot button on a PlayStation controller. The game released in 2002, so it was rife with a bunch of janky controls. Also, just controlling the camera was an absolute nightmare. There were a bunch of other things going on that made controlling Jango Fett a bit of a janky mess. Please drop out. For me, it's always been that kind of game that you can't really just pick up every now and then and play. You have to go in with the intention of sticking to it so that you can just re-memorize all the controls and figure out how to actually play this thing. That said, this was one of my favorite games as a kid. Playing as Jango Fett, I feel like it's the experience we didn't get in the Book of Boba Fett. And yes, I know it's about his son, Boba Fett. This is about Jango Fett, but it felt so true to Star Wars source material, I guess, and to what Jango Fett truly was. This was basically his origin story. The game discusses the formation of the clone army, how Jango was chosen by Count Dooku or Darth Tyrannus as the original clone template. You see that interaction happen in this game. You see how Jango Fett acquired his jetpack, how he got a bunch of new weapons, and basically play through the story of the game, seeing his character develop. You also learn how he came to acquire Slave One, and that became his primary ship.
Did you name that new ship of yours yet?
She's called Slave One.
And also are able to hunt random bounties in the linear missions you play through. The overall story of the game is about you hunting for this dark Jedi. You've been hired to basically hunt them down. There's a whole plot involving death sticks and kind of the underground industry of that. It's a really interesting and I think one of the better Star Wars story games from way back in the day. I'd say one of the best Star Wars story games ever. Origins of Jango Fett. What more could you want? Jango in this game is the kind of badass we wish Boba was more of in the Book of Boba Fett. And the best part about it, he's voiced, of course, by Tamura Morrison.
Jabba sends his regards.
But like I said, this is one of the hardest Star Wars games to play, but it seems like, for the most part, they're fixing that with this re-release. They're talking a lot about the adaptive triggers, how they're using specifically on PlayStation, the PS5 controller, to give each weapon in Jango's arsenal a particular feel. Now, with that information, I think we can assume that they've moved the shoot and aim buttons to L2 and R2 instead of square. It seems like they've done a bunch of remapping and given Star Wars Bounty Bounty Hunter a modern control scheme, which is going to make this such a different experience to play compared to what it was back in the day, or even compared to the PS4 version that they re-released a few years back. Give me a sec.
A few moments later.
Guys, I'm so disappointed. I thought I had the game case here, but I think it's at my parents' place. Some other classic Star Wars games, but no Star Wars Bounty Hunter. I'll bring it for the next video. Now, apparently the PS5 controller's adaptive triggers are also going to have a particular feel and rhythm based on each weapon in Jango Fett's arsenal. And for me, again, this is going to be a bit of a game changer. The feel of the game is going to be so different to what it was way back in 2002, when I was completely obsessed with Star Wars, as I still am. Now, the rest of the changes and additions to the controller for me are a bit gimmicky. First of all, they're putting the light bar as a health bar. I never look at that. Well, like, who needs that? And also, the voice comms can come through the controller. This is one of the things I've never understood about PlayStation games, because for me, it just takes me so out of it. Why would I want the sound coming out of my controller when all the rest of the sound is coming out of there? I know probably some people find this more immersive. I've always found it to be really gimmicky and stupid. But they're doing that. So you'll hear Roz's beautiful voice coming out of your controller.
And you're guaranteed to win an audience with Jabba.
Now, of course, the game is also supposedly heavily visually upgraded. Based on some of these cutscenes and what we're seeing in the trailer, it does look better, but still not amazing if we're being real. I believe the game has 4K 60 FPS, as you'd expect nowadays, with improved environment textures to give more depth and texture to the environment. But what they've written here, I think, is literally a bit of a joke. They said the result is a richer environment that feels a bit more modern. Just a bit. Just a little bit more modern. It doesn't feel modern, it's a bit more modern. But they've also added dynamic lighting with more color and impact throughout the environment. Apparently, every bolt from Jango's blaster will illuminate throughout the entire velocity. So Jango Fett's blaster bolts are going to look better. Cool. But they've actually also added some gameplay features, and the big one is a flashlight. They're adding a flashlight to Jango's equipment, which I'm assuming is going to be one of his equipment options, not just an extra thing you press. And supposedly this is just to help you navigate some dark areas of the game. Yes, there are definitely some dark locations in Star Wars Bounty Hunter. I personally never really felt the need for a flashlight, though. It's not one of the darkest games I've played. There will be a flashlight, so I wonder if it's on Jango Fett's helmet. That'd be cool. But probably the most interesting feature of this entire remaster is an Easter egg, something that was promised in the original game, but was never actually included. Apparently in the original game, there was an Easter egg with a very low resolution texture of a message written in Aurebesh that said, cash in all bounties to play as Boba. So basically, if you 100% complete the game and find all the bounties, you'd be able to unlock a Boba Fett skin. However, the game never had the feature. It was only written in, so clearly the developers either ran out of time or just forgot, or could just never get it to work. So it was never included, but the message remained in the game. However, this new version does have Boba Fett. You can play the entire Star Wars Bounty Hunter as Boba Fett if you make your way through the entire game, I believe. Yeah, so it's basically like a New Game Plus kind of thing. You just have to complete the main campaign, and then you'll be able to equip a Boba Fett as a skin for your next playthrough. But okay, honestly, is this thing worth the price? Apparently, if you pre-order, you can get a 10% discount now. The game is on the cheaper side. It is a re-release. It's currently 30 Australian dollars, so with 10% discount off, you get a little extra off. But yes, even though there are a bunch of new features, it still feels a little bit like a cash grab, which I hate having to say. Even though Aspire Media have predominantly fixed the Battlefront Classic Collection with a series of updates that have improved quality of life for the game, you can now play online, and as far as I know, it's pretty seamless. They still haven't really done anything to make up and say sorry for how terrible a state the Battlefront Classic Collection released in. Even though I'm so happy we're getting Star Wars Bounty Hunter in a remastered version, this being one of my favorite Star Wars games of all time, I still feel Aspire need to kind of improve their image after what happened with the Classic Collection. It just feels a bit cheap and unfair. And yes, this is the game they're releasing following Battlefront Classic Collection. This is their next release. As far as I'm aware, there's nothing that's come in between. It's another Star Wars title. It's a title that I think is a bit more niche than the Battlefront Classic Collection, and I don't think this is going to have the same same controversy, even if it releases in a bit of a broken state, which let's hope it really doesn't. But should they still do something more to make up for what happened with that horrible, horrible release? There was dark times, my friends, darker times I have not seen before. That said, I kind of want to try and finish Star Wars Bounty Hunter before this comes out. Like I said, I haven't finished the game, and it's been 22 years since I started playing it. So perhaps I should do that with the old control scheme where it's still really janky and actually really challenging to play. If you want to see more of my playthrough, you can watch my whole playthrough up until the last episode, which I'm yet to film. But let me know if you do want to see that, and I want to play this when it comes out as well, to be honest. I want to play more old Star Wars games. They're so much fun, and I just hope that this releases in a state that is actually playable. Are you going to play Star Wars Bounty Hunter? And I feel like the only game they haven't really remade up until this point is the Revenge of the Sith video game. This is easily one of the best Star Wars games ever made. Super, super underrated. Yes, a little janky, but lovable at the same time. So when are we getting this? Seriously, we've got pretty much all of them now. They just re-released the Clone Wars game on PS4 and PS5, I believe. So when are we getting this? Make it happen, Aspire or someone. But don't forget about Clip's channel. Also, come follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Discord, TikTok, all those. And thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew. Catch you soon.